Hi, everyone. I'm Rosemary Coates here in Silicon Valley. I'm your host for this edition of the Frictionless Supply Chain podcast. I'm the executive director of the Reshoring Institute, where we help companies bring back or expand their manufacturing in the U.S. I'm also a contributing writer to Supply Chain Management Review. Today, I'm welcoming my guest, Rachel Winn, the Director of Operations at U.S. Critical Materials. And this is going to be a very important discussion and a critical origin point for so many supply chains, and that is the mining of rare earth elements. In 2021, after Biden took office, he appointed a team to study critical supply chains and their vulnerabilities in America. After 100 days, the team reported that the top 4 categories where we are most vulnerable are semiconductors, large-scale batteries, pharmaceuticals, and rare earth elements. If you're interested in this report, it's posted on the Reshoring Institute's website under U.S. Manufacturing Profiles tab. Rare earth elements are required for making all electronics, semiconductors, EV batteries, industrial magnets, and a host of other things we use every day in our lives. Just imagine what it would be like if we didn't have our cell phones or our laptops or any other electronic device. And all of those are reliant on rare earth elements as part of production. And right now, 80 to 90% of rare earth elements are mined and refined in China. This is a huge supply chain risk for American industries. So the recent announcement by U.S. Critical Materials of a major geological find of rare earths in Montana is awesome news. But I'm going to let Rachel tell you all about this. So let's get started. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. This is such an important topic, not only to me, but I think to the majority of supply chains out there. And we need to be educated on what rare earths are, how they're mined, and this new announcement that you have about Sheep Creek. I'm going to be careful on how I say that. Sheep Creek. Well, tell us about your background and how you became involved in rare earths exploration at U.S. Critical Materials.
Well, in 2008, I was a research assistant for a geologist, and I basically, I would just search for reports, historical data that pertain to rare earth properties around the United States, and we would locate those properties, go and take ground samples, and if there was a good mineralization, rare earths there, we would stake those claims. And I did that for several years. And then recently, one of my colleagues from that project approached me about starting this company. And I was so excited because, you know, the other project didn't really come to fruition. And so this new project, especially with the mineralization that we found in Sheep Creek, it's so exciting because I can really see, you know, that this is going to go somewhere, you know. Whether you know I'm involved with it when it does or not, it's just exciting to know that that there is something there and it's big, and I feel like it's going to take care of all of our rare earth needs.
Very good. So why is it critical that the U.S. establishes rare earth mining and refining domestically?
Well, like you said,
yeah,
you know, you said that 80 to 90% of our rare earths that we get now, our supply comes from China. And, you know, that's just not a very good, it's not a very good place to be. You know, if we can mine our own resources, you know, in the United States, that puts us in a stronger strategic, you know, position, you know.
I guess, you know, if you think of it this way, if you know, the relationship between the U.S. and China gets worse or continues to worsen, you know, it was pretty good for a while. And then the Trump administration started the trade war, and, you know, our relationship just went downhill from there, and it hasn't gotten any better under the Biden administration either.
No.
So if China were to decide not to sell rare earth elements to us, or to stop selling them on the world market like they are today and just keep them all for themselves? I mean, we are in a world of hurt,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. So the Chinese Communist Party in China has essentially weaponized its global rare earth domination. And I mean, that's, really frightening, when you think
Yeah.
about the implication there.
Yeah, I mean, think about defense contracts, for example. All the electronics that go into defense equipment, none of that we wouldn't be able to make any of that. Now, I understand that rare earths were mined in the US maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but because production in China was so much cheaper and more efficient, it's my understanding that China mostly they mine the rare earth elements and also import basic rare earth elements, but then they process them up along the Mongolian border because it's such a polluting kind of activity. And because they were doing that and doing it at a much less expensive rate, that the U.S. Production was shut down because we couldn't compete here.
Right.
So what do you know what has changed? I mean, I think the US government is supplementing some of that exploration and the production of rare earths after they're mined. But you're in the mining part of it, so finding the resources, right, and getting them out of the
Yeah,
ground.
well, we're not into the mining part of the process yet. We're still doing the exploration. But I have to say, what's really unique about the Sheep Creek area is there's mining. Let's see. I don't want to misspeak.
Well, I think just before we talk about Sheep Creek, because I want to go into that, and I know it's a special area. What can you sort of describe the process? And you started talking about the exploration and the staking claims and so forth. Can you take us through what happens, how that works? How do you find these things? I mean,
Yeah, well, like I was saying before, you have to do research. You go through geologic reports. You go on the USGS and search for areas and mentions of rare earths. And then you go to those locations. Your geologist goes there and he has to visually identify, rare earth mineralization there, and then take samples, ground samples. They just pick up the samples and put them in a bag and hike them out and send them to a lab. And there's only a few labs that can do the processing, the testing for rare earths, because, there's many different elements to rare earth. And they separate those elements and then find out the grades of each one. So it's a real specialized process.
mhm.
So after that's completed, you get this report and it shows you exactly what you have on the ground anyway. And then once you've done that, of course, you stake that area, and you stake it along the trend so that you
What do you
have.
mean by staking the area? Do you
So
have to
you have to
buy the
go
land?
out with a location notice, and it's each claim is 20 miles.
Okay.
So you go out and you find the claim post and you put your location notice in, and then you file your paperwork at the Bureau of Land Management and in the county.
So this is on public lands? It's all on
BLM,
public.
Bureau of Land Management at BLM
Okay.
land. Yeah, public land.
Okay. All right.
So
And you don't actually buy the land, you just
no,
stake a claim.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a lease, and then you renew it every year. And anything that you want to do on that property, on that ground that you're leasing, you have to, of course, get permission, and you can't just go up there and build a home.
Okay. Yeah.
If you wanted to, if you wanted to go up there and do digging, you've got to fill out something that, tells them who's going to be there, what date, what equipment you're using, things like that.
Okay.
So, it's not real easy, but it can be
Yeah.
done, and we've been up in that area for a long time, and we know, the people there at the
So,
BLM and
mm,
at the ranger stations and things like that. So they're familiar with our
yeah.
comings and goings. But
Yeah. It's
yeah,
my
so
understanding.
then you stake the ground, and then, you continue to do your exploration. and eventually digging and eventually drilling. And then, the big dream is mining,
Okay.
But so we have an advantage at Sheep Creek because there are pre-existing mine workings. That was the word I was looking for. There's adits, which are horizontal tunnels that go down. And we've reopened these.
What are they called again? What are they called?
An
Adits?
adit, ADIT. And
Okay.
it's a horizontal tunnel that goes under the ground. So they were pre-existing, they were already there. So we've gone down into those, reopened them, gone down into those. And there's 125 feet of mineralization there below. So the geologist can see it's above ground there. But the great news is there's a vein and a dike that goes all the way down. So our belief is,
let me ask a question. So the geologists look at maps and reports and so forth and find a likely location, right? And then they go and test the top ground stuff. And in this case, the tests for Sheep Creek must have come back very positive.
They did, yeah. So 18% of total rare earth element, and that's huge. And the other great thing about that is they found very negligible amounts of thorium. And, when you hear thorium, you're like, oh man, nuclear. So there's no need for a permit from the NRC.
Okay, so a lot of these deposits are in places where there's high thorium, so it's more difficult to mine because that's radioactive, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's hard to separate the thorium and it's hard to dispose of it, And
Okay.
there's just negligible, there's negligible amounts there. And one of the geologists we had up there, one of our associates said, this is like a geologic unicorn because you rarely ever find large amounts of rare earths this high, which is one of the highest in the United States, if not the highest. We won't know yet until we get further underground. But he said you rarely ever find that amount of rare earth, if ever, without the thorium content, because they're kind of married in together.
Yeah. Oh,
so
I see.
It's really exciting because it's going to be it's going to be a lot safer environmentally and a lot cheaper, to get the rare earths, extracted and processed without the thorium content.
So it's my understanding that rare earths are everywhere. You could even find them in your backyard if you wanted to, but the big deposits are mostly in the Western US and in Canada. Is that right?
That's what I understand. Yeah. And how much exploration has been done. We did some in Colorado and in New Mexico, but who knows, maybe there's huge deposits other places. People just haven't really looked for it, because it's relatively, kind of a new thing. We were getting all of our rare earths, outsourced, getting that from China, other countries. And I think just in the last maybe 20 years, people have been like, oh, hey, this is important. This is a resource we need, and let's try to find it. So who knows?
So then after the rare earths are mined, then do they go off to a processing company or what happens after that?
Yeah, they'll need to be processed after they're mined. So I mean, this is going to be a very expensive venture, but I think shows like yours and the press releases and getting people aware of the need for these rare earths, I think that might spark some government involvement. It would be great if the government said, hey, we do need this,
Yeah.
let's take care of this, not that there's giant amounts of piles of money sitting around, but I do believe that this is worthy of government funding.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, that there's likely to be money available, either low cost loans or grants or other funding for exploration and testing and that sort of thing through the US government because of this critical vulnerability. So I mean it's well recognized, and in some respects it's urgent
It is
I mean, if
urgent.
something were going to happen to our relationship with China that made them pinch or cut off altogether our rare earth resources, I mean, we are just in terrible shape. It's very, very risky.
Yeah, we're
So
really
this,
vulnerable right now, and it makes us weaker. And, we really need to pay attention to our national security.
yeah, for sure. And obviously, if we're in a conflict with China, we're going to need extra funding for defense equipment and all of that. We can't make defense equipment if we don't have rare earths, and on and on and on. So
Absolutely.
it's really the center of so many supply chains. And I think supply chain professionals who are probably listening to this podcast will recognize that we haven't done much thought, put much thought into where those basic mined materials come from. So we're more used to buying products that are already made and ready to go, or ready to be used in a manufacturing environment. But boy, we need to connect the dots all the way back to the mining of this stuff is really important. So
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit more about Sheep Creek. Where is it in Montana? And what's the availability? How was the mine originally used? Do you know any other of that history?
So the Sheep Creek property is northern, well, it's on the border of Montana and Idaho, just right on the border there. It is near to Salmon, Idaho, and it's really accessible. There's a lot of little roads up there. It's pretty easy for our geologists to go up and do the exploring. Although there were fires a couple of years ago, but
Okay.
it turned out that kind of made it easier to get through the
Yeah.
through the area, to do his exploring. But yeah,
So I would imagine because they had already developed a mine there in the past, there were roads already built to the mine and at least some accessibility.
yeah, it's pretty accessible. It's 7 square miles. It covers 4,700 acres. We've got 223 claims in there right now. So if you times 223 times 20, I mean, that's a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So anyway, um,
So does a claim is for a specific area? Is that right? Or a specific something you're looking for, a specific mineral, or
so
what's the claim?
no, you don't have to specify what your claim is for. You just file your paperwork. But yeah, like I said, it's 20 acres each claim. So when you find an area you're interested in, you go and do your sampling, and then you put your location notice in the post there, and you file it with the BLM, and then you have to pay an annual fee every year for your assessments and your maintenance. But the great thing about that area is our geologist lives real close, and he just loves what he does. And he's up there all the time finding new things. We have calls every morning, and he hasn't been up there now since the snow, but it just seemed like every week, he had something new to report, something he was really excited about. And it's too bad that the sampling, it's such an expensive thing to do, to have those samples analyzed.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this whole process is very expensive. So, looking for the right location, then exploring, then the
and then
claims and
waiting for the results.
yeah.
We've all been waiting for our next sampling report, and we're just on pins and needles. We just can't wait to find out, what we found underground. So yeah, and it was really neat to see the pictures. He goes into the adit there, and it's just really neat. It's this big cave of mineralization and carbonatites and things, and he's just so excited about it. It makes it really fun. Well, it's kind of fun anyway, but it makes it even more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. So what was the mine for used prior to this?
I could find that information, but
Okay,
I
no,
know
that's
you
all
don't
right.
want, I know you don't want me to wait. Yeah, you don't want to wait for me to
Yeah.
find it. I know it was open sometime in the 40s, so it was a
Okay.
while back.
But they were not mining rare earths at that
Oh,
time. They
no,
were
no,
mining something else.
something
Okay.
else. Yeah,
And then it was abandoned for a while. Is that right?
it was.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
For
Wow. So
quite a
interesting. And
while. Yeah,
they didn't know they were sitting on a gold mine, so to
right.
speak, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If they had only known that there were rare earths there that would be, fast forward used today in all of our electronics, it
Oh,
would have been
absolutely.
something.
Yeah. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, huh?
Yeah.
That
So
would have been great.
did the prior company must have abandoned the mine and that allowed you to stake a claim? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, if we want to learn more about this, Rachel, can you give us your website or where we can go to learn more about these rare earths? I think it's in Sheep Creek. It's very exciting
Yeah.
time to learn more for supply chain people.
Yeah. uscriticalmaterials.com. That's our website. And if anyone wanted to get in touch, it's just Rachel Winn at uscriticalmaterials.com is my email address.
Ah, that's terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for talking to us today. It was so interesting. And these are things that supply chain people really need to think about and be aware of so that they understand the end-to-end supply chain for the products that they're working with.
Well, thank
Um,
you for bringing all of this information to light. We all need to be aware of these
yeah,
important issues.
yes, it's an exciting time for you as well as for America to repair our supply chain and make sure we link all parts of it and recognize the vulnerabilities for sure.
Absolutely.
So you can listen to more Frictionless Supply Chain podcasts posted on Supply Chain Management Reviews landing page, as well as iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can reach me, Rosemary Coates, at rcoates@reshoringinstitute.org and visit our website at www.reshoringinstitute.org, where we publish all of our research on manufacturing in America. Thank you for listening and have a great day.